Kia ora koutou katoa. I'd like to say thank you to organisers for inviting me to speak because I really appreciate this opportunity. My aim today is to explain to you what I do as a citizen scientist, and I particularly want to give some practical suggestions to GLAMs, galleries, libraries, archives and museums on what they can do to help me with my citizen science work. Now, the type of work I do isn't what normally people think of as citizen science. Although I do get outside and observe and collect data on nature, I spend most of my time in front of a computer attempting to link and connect all sorts of content and data relating to the natural world. And I do this via a suite of platforms, including English Wikipedia, Wikidata, Wikicommons, GLAM transcription websites, iNaturalist, Flickr, Binomial Tracker, to name but a few. And I do this because I want to help the public, scientists, and GLAM institutions to contribute to the knowledge about and conservation of biodiversity. And I'm hoping by explaining what I do and making suggestions on how GLAMs can support my work, I can encourage GLAMs to improve their engagement with citizen scientists like me. Now, my first request is not new. I'm asking GLAMs to digitise content in their collections, place that content on publicly accessible platforms, and make that content easy for citizen scientists like me to reuse. Now, I'm well aware that this sounds simple, but it is not. But in order to do my work, I need institutions to prioritise digital reuse and linking of their collections. I recognise that to do this, GLAMs have to digitise content, which is expensive, time-consuming, and takes resources. They also have to have copyright expertise to assess whether their digitised content is in the public domain, and if not, whether that content is able to be licensed openly for reuse. But this effort is vital for me to do my work. If GLAMs frustrate reuse by having restrictive website terms and conditions, or use non-commercial or non-derivative copyright licenses, they will hinder or completely halt my work. So please, when I come to your website, tell me whether your content is in the public domain. If it falls within copyright, use open copyright licenses to encourage reuse. Give guidance on culturally appropriate reuse of content, and if you want attribution, give an ideal citation for your reusers. Now, an example of a GLAM that does this really well is New Zealand's National Museum Te Papa. And as you can see, when I go to reuse Te Papa's specimen images, this institution gives me all the information I need to make that reuse easy. Now I want to show you some of the things I can do with the content that's been digitised and openly licensed. And I'm going to use an example, a set of images of New Zealand endemic moths. But please understand the workflow I'm about to show you can be used for other images, other types of content, and not just for citizen science purposes. So about a decade ago, a New Zealand state agency, Landcare Research, which is now known by their Māori name, Manaki Whenua, digitised some of their beautiful moth specimens, and they released those images on their website under a Creative Commons license, an open license. Now I stumbled across these images and realised they could be extremely useful, and because they were openly licensed, I was able to upload them into Wikicommons, the media repository for the suite of projects overseen by the Wikimedia Foundation. And I uploaded them into Wikicommons so that I could then reuse those images when I improved Wikipedia species articles and Wikidata items on those species. Now, this was great for Manaki Whenua because it increased the impact of their collection. Internet search engines prioritise Wikipedia and Wikidata when returning a result for a search. And Google's knowledge panel frequently reuses Wikipedia articles, the data and Wikidata items, and their accompanying images. And the outcome of this is that people were more likely to find and reuse Manaki Whenua Landcare research content. But improving the impact of and engagement with Manaaki Whenua's collection is not my main motivation. I'm adding images, creating or improving Wikipedia species articles, enriching Wikidata items because I want to help increase the knowledge about New Zealand's biodiversity. New Zealand has hundreds of data deficient, at-risk or endangered species. And because we're a small country, New Zealand also has very few professional taxonomists. I believe we've got a grand total of one full-time employed specialist lepidopterist in the whole of the country. And it seems obvious to me that if we want to gather data about these species to help conserve them, we have to rely on citizen scientists. But to do that, citizen scientists need to know what they're looking for. So as well as adding the images to Wikicommons, Wikipedia and Wikidata, I also want to ensure that those openly licensed images are reused on platforms where they're likely to have the most direct benefit for citizen scientists. So I also uploaded those images into the species pages of iNaturalist. Now, iNaturalist is a citizen science website and app, and it's used by many New Zealanders as well as other citizen scientists the world over to gather observation data on species. Now, by uploading those expertly curated images, I'm helping citizen scientists, myself included, accurately identify the species they're observing. They can compare their images against the Manaaki Whenua image. And the other fabulous thing about iNaturalist is that it automatically ingests the Wikipedia species article onto its site. And it can do this because the Wikipedia article itself is openly licensed. So any improvement I make to the Wikipedia article is directly delivered out to the very folk I'm wanting to inform. And both the expertly curated images and the information given in the Wikipedia article can help the citizen scientists confirm their iNaturalist observation up to a research grade. That citizen science generated observation data can then be added to biodiversity data aggregators. Aggregators such as GBIF, the Global Biodiversity Information Facility. Now, GBIF is contributed to by natural history museums the world over. They add their specimen collection data to the site, and this aggregation of data sourced from both natural history institutions and iNaturalist citizen scientists helps improve the knowledge about species. It can show the geographical range of species, the timing of life stages, hosts, parasites, and so much more. And all this ingestion and linking can generate a virtuous cycle of reuse of content, of data, and of images. And it can help generate knowledge improvement, brought about partially as a result of that reuse and partially as a result of folk like me linking that knowledge. Now, I spend a lot of my time linking natural history data through Wikidata. And if you haven't heard of it, this is a project, again, overseen by the Wikimedia Foundation. And Wikidata is a free, collaborative, multilingual secondary database. Wikidata collects structured data about basically everything. It empowers me to create linked open data about species. And I can link to publications, to archives, to GLAM collections, to collectors, to scientific illustrations, and so much more. I include references supporting any factual statements I make. And these structured data can then be queried, enabling anyone to ask questions that might not otherwise be easy to answer. And Wikidata also acts as a hub linking to other databases and datasets, including those contributed to or maintained by GLAM. And it helps connect these disparate sources of information. So for example, GBIF has an identifier for species, and this has been added to Wikidata, as does iNaturalist. So these two separate databases and their data about species are linked through the Wikidata species item. Which brings me on to my next recommendation to GLAM. When I add data and content to Wikipedia, Wikidata, and Wikicommons, I need to link to the source of that data and content. And I need those links to be stable and to persist. So please, I beg you, use stable URLs and persistent identifiers for your content. I can't make links to and from GLAM knowledge if those links break or disappear. And my request isn't just aimed at GLAM websites. I also need persistent identifiers for in-house publications, for journals, for catalogues, for datasets. And related to this is archiving digital content. If GLAMs can't guarantee that the links and the identifiers are going to be stable, at the very least, please archive the website or the content being provided. That's the why I'm begging. Remember those lovely moth images? The link where I originally found them has disappeared after a website refresh. That content, so precious and important to me, has been removed. And those links, those broken links, are broken knowledge. But all is not lost, because I and others like me archived that iteration of the website to the Internet Archive via the Internet Archive Wayback Machine, which does have a persistent stable identifier, which I can link to and I can use with citations, and which I am confident is not going to disappear. So to give an example about what I can do when an institution is motivated to provide persistent identifiers and stable URLs, look no further than the Biodiversity Heritage Library. This is a library made up of a group of natural history, botanical, research, and national libraries, all working together to digitise natural history literature and make it freely available for reuse. And BHL does this with permanent identifiers and stable URLs for each page of content scanned, for every entry in their catalogue, and for each of the creators of their work. And as a result, it is by far my favourite library in the whole world. In fact, BHL is now creating persistent identifiers by adding digital object identifiers, or DOIs, to historic literature. And if you want to know more about this effort, I'd highly recommend you watch Nicole Carney, the manager of BHL Australia, present on her work. I've put links in the slides about this effort. Now, ensuring that content you are providing has a persistent identifier and stable URL will mean I can reuse that content and cite it, being confident that my citation will always link to the source of the information. And this in turn ensures that the reader will only be a mouse click away from the original source of the knowledge, making that knowledge verifiable, trustworthy. Now, the final suggestion I have for GLAMs is to be proactive about placing their digital content in a wide variety of platforms. I appreciate that to maintain your presence on these digital channels will take resources, but having content on multiple platforms will ensure more folk, including citizen scientists, will be exposed to it and can reuse it. Now, one example of this is the Smithsonian Libraries and Archives. They've digitised handwritten field notebooks of many naturalists, and I've helped transcribe some of these texts in the Smithsonian Transcription Centre. The Smithsonian catalogue has been enriched with both the original scans as well as the volunteer transcription. But the Smithsonian's gone one step further and shared these files on a different platform. They've shared them with BHL. Now, the Biodiversity Heritage Library normally runs an optical character recognition, or OCR, program over any donated content. It then uses an algorithm to extract species names. And this helps those using BHL, including citizen scientists like me, find information on species they're interested in. But because the field notebooks are handwritten, the OCR program and that species algorithm are useless. That is, until the transcription of those field notebooks is also added to BHL. The transcription replaces the OCR, allowing the algorithm to extract the species names. And by doing this, the Smithsonian Library and Archives have made these historic field notebooks that still contain scientifically relevant observations, findable, searchable, reusable. Another example is the BHL Flickr account. Hundreds of thousands of scientific illustrations sourced from public domain or openly licensed content served up for anyone to reuse. Again, this works for citizen scientists because Flickr ensures these images are easily downloadable, easily reusable. But it also works for BHL because folk like me come and tag those images in Flickr. I tag these images with species names used in the illustration, the current species names, the artist who created the illustration, the Wikidata item for the artist, and so much more. And because these tags are machine readable, they can be used not just by Flickr, they're available for BHL to potentially ingest back into their system. In fact, that tagging is available for anyone to reuse as it accompanies the image. And that anyone can include Wikicommons. Those tags that I and others like me have added can be ingested into Wikicommons along with the images. And those tags can help make those images easier to find and reuse on multiple platforms. So I hope these examples have inspired you to consider the potential reuses of GLAM collection data, because I reuse all sorts of GLAM data in ways that aren't often anticipated by GLAMs themselves. Now take, for example, those natural history institutions that have added their specimen collection data to GBIF. The main motivation by adding those data there is to assist the research undertaken on those species. But that data can be used for other purposes. Binomia Tracker is a website that uses data from GBIF to help link information on collectors of specimens, to add the actual specimens themselves. Now, I use Binomia Tracker to link data on historic women collectors, many of whom have made underappreciated contributions to our knowledge on natural history. These women are often invisible because many of them use their married names, and this has resulted in their work being attributed to their husbands. So I first research these women and I create Wikidata items for them. Once I have a death date, I can then add their Wikidata item to Binomia Tracker, and Binomia Tracker can then pull the information and data from GBIF and start suggesting specimens these women may have collected. I can then attribute those specimens to a particular woman collector, and this disambiguation and attribution work is able to be reused. GLAMs themselves can download the data from Binomia and ingest it into their collection management system. So GLAMs can benefit from this data enrichment. Now, one final example I'd like to bring up for the art folk in the room. And I hope this example will show the unforeseen benefits of openly sharing images, both of artwork and specimens held by GLAMs. I absolutely love still life painting. But the unfortunate thing about them is that I often look at them and can't identify the species in them. I'm normally quite frustrated by this. But I've discovered that by using iNaturalist, I can at least attempt to satisfy my curiosity. I can take a screenshot of the painting and start the upload process into iNaturalist as if it was an observation of a real live species. I should reassure you, I never complete the upload. I'm only aiming to get iNaturalist to give suggestions about the species depicted. And remember, I'm from New Zealand, so even the most common European birds and insects may be exotic to me. Now, iNaturalist uses research-grade observations to inform its suggestions. Research-grade observations that may have come about due to comparison to those expertly curated GLAM specimen images that I was talking about before. And if I'm lucky, iNaturalist can tell me if the painting depicts not just a bird, but a Euro-Asian bullfinch, and not just a butterfly, but a wall brown butterfly. And what's great about this is I can then use this information to inform the structured data about that painting in Wikidata and Wikicommons. I can add to Wikidata and Wikicommons statements about what that painting depicts. And this is a reuse I suspect neither the GLAMs nor iNaturalist will have ever anticipated. And again, this is data that is then available to be fed back to GLAMs. So in conclusion, hopefully I've persuaded you that if GLAMs allow their content to be openly reused, ensure their identifiers and URLs are persistent and stable, and place content on multiple platforms, everyone, including citizen scientists and the GLAMs themselves, can benefit. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Siobhan. Very nice to hear all of this. I think Carl Magnus is with us as well. Are you? Carl Magnus Johansson. Ska vi se om vi får in dig i bild också. Du har suttit och haft lite koll på chatt och så vidare och kanske har någon tanke också om det Siobhan sagt.
Absolutely. Hi, Siobhan, and thank you so much for your inspiring talk about your impressive work and also for being so generous in sharing your experience of your citizen science efforts. So I was thinking a bit, I mean, you made a quite clear call to us in the GLAM sector about the basic, almost technical work that you want us to do, to digitize more, to use public platforms, to create stable URLs and persistent identifiers. But I was a bit curious about your thoughts on the more, let's call it soft values of engaging in citizen sciences. So I was wondering, for you as a citizen scientist, what is the value of the community of citizen scientists, and what would you want from us in the GLAM sector to reach out for you in the community of citizen scientists?
I've found the direct contact I've had with GLAM professionals really helpful in my citizen science. And it's a variety of experiences I've had with them. But once I've got a relationship with them, then I can email them and ask questions. So for example, I've got a very good relationship with the entomologist at the Auckland Museum because I've been dealing with their data and their images, and it's been throwing up questions which I don't know the answer to. So I will email him and say, look, I've looked at your specimen, I'm using it on this, but I seriously cannot get whether this is the real current taxonomic name or not. Can you help me? And he will help. And it's not often I get into those sorts of situations, but at least I've got somewhere to go to if I do have that problem. I've also been on what's called bioblitzes with the botanists from Te Papa. And, this is outreach that they do to engage with the public. But for a citizen scientist like me, it's very inspiring and makes me even more enthusiastic about the work I do when I see, scientists doing their work. Those are the sort of outreach that I really enjoy. And then I go back home, sit behind my computer and get inspired to do more of my connecting and data, etc. Yeah.
Oh, thank you, Siobhan. So I take a look at the chat here, and there aren't really many questions, but a lot of applause to your talk. Helena Kullefelt is just thanking you for the super inspiring talk. Also, Johanna Berg and Karin is applauding you, and so am I. So thank you again, Siobhan. Yeah.